Welcome to another episode of Stories from the Edge of Life. We once again have our very special guest, Dr. Daniel Hoefer. Welcome back, Dr. Hoefer.
Thank you, Parag. Happy to be back.
Would you mind introducing yourself once again to our audience?
Sure. I'm Dr. Daniel Hoefer. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Outpatient Palliative Medicine for Sharp Healthcare. I'm the Medical Director for Hospice for Sharp Healthcare. I'm a practicing family physician, and I have had many, many hats within the healthcare system, from utilization manager to a legal committee. I work as a professional consultant, and I've worked in nursing homes for 25 years. I've done all sorts of things. I was a home health medical director for some time, and so I've been around the block.
Great, thanks for sharing that. And I'm Parag Bharadwaj. I'm a hospice and palliative medicine physician. So, Dr. Hofer, we got to hear about your journey as a physician in terms of how you trained in family medicine and then proceeded to now focus on hospice and palliative medicine. Let's talk about you as a person now. Tell us about your journey, because when you go into medicine, you have a particular worldview of about life, and can you share with us how that has evolved since your medical school days?
Yeah. Yes, there's a lot. For me to go and start at medical school, I would probably have to actually go before that because of personal health issues. So at age 2, I was in 1964, and you can imagine the quality of care then. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And the standard of care for checking a type 1 diabetic was every 3 months, we would get one single blood sugar reading by going to the lab and doing a blood draw. It wasn't until the 1980s that the technology came around to improve that level of care. But I've had many issues related to the healthcare industry and being a patient in that service line. And so when I went to medical school, I was hoping to take the rough edges off of well-intended providers. I remember one example from when I was very young and had to give shots, and the doctor said, well, over time, it will become less painful. Well, 60 years later, I'm waiting for that day, because if you hit the wrong spot, it hurts like hell still to this day. But people say a lot of things, and we do that because we're human beings and we want to feel comfortable with the care that we're providing. So things aren't always the way we think they are. I had another episode in college, and this is something people can think about how rough their journey was. But I had a cataract removed out of my left eye, and then I had a hemorrhage in my right eye, and so I was legally blind. To be able to stay in college, I had to wake up in the morning and let the blood get down to the bottom of my eye and move the books in front of me back and forth without moving my eye. Otherwise, all the blood would block my view, and I would have to wait another hour before I could study again. And it was a very trying time. I have a saying from that experience, that life experience, that I never saw more clearly than when I was blind, because the personalities of the friends and character of your friends was not defined by anything that you could see, but only by their internal character. And I had my best friend, Pat, was from Nicaragua, and he would walk me to class. He taught me about pain, or I taught myself about pain, because it's far better to be distracted than sit at home as you're getting laser treatments to your eye and feeling pain. Way better to sit in the back of a class and to be listening to the professor to get your mind distracted than to focus on the pain. And he would walk me in the 80s. It wasn't very cool back then to be holding one man holding on to another. It'd be much more tolerated today, but that was 40 years ago. And he didn't have to think twice about it. I had another friend who came down from Loma Linda. I had just a friend, a casual neighbor that lived where I grew up, and she would read me the funnies and describe the pictures. And those are the little things in life. I could give you many stories. So I don't know why I picked those two, but those were stories of people who showed their humanity, and you could see, I could see, even though I couldn't see, their character by my lack of vision. And that's something I've tried to bring to what I do in healthcare. Now, in medical school, yeah, things were. I went back east, and it was not as. It was a great experience, Eastern Virginia Medical School, but it was still in the 80s and 90s, and things were not as evolved as they were now. And I had not experienced that. And so to me, that was a new experience. Um, to feel people more, not openly segregated, but subclinically segregated, and I was not comfortable with it. I just didn't like it, on everybody. And but that was my experience. So there's lots of other. My point behind all this is a lot of other culture going on in healthcare and healthcare education, the history of healthcare, than just the medicine of it. The medicine has improved, the culture has improved, but we have to constantly be vigilant about seeing what we don't see and improving our care by awareness of things that are around us that perhaps are not superficial, not in the up front. And I think that would do us a great service. So over in medical school, I went to a place where I was accepted to 7 medical schools, and I chose one that was just this no-name rinky-dink school at the time. It evolved into a great school, but it was the school I was looking for. And in retrospect, it was the best decision I ever made, because they were looking for people to develop primary care skills, and they offered fantastic primary care opportunities to learn. And that is what I was personally looking for. And then my residency, I came back to UCLA, and I went to a hospital that was only family physicians, because I didn't want my surgical experience, undermined by other residents, and which is fine. Everybody can have their own route through this. This is what I wanted. I wanted to be the assistant in the surgery. I wanted to deliver the baby, so I delivered hundreds of babies. I, wanted to be able to take care of a pediatric patient in the ICU, and then go and take care of somebody in chest pain in the ER. And at the time, you never knew. Family physicians in the past, they went off to Okefenokee, wherever, and it was a small town, and you did do everything. So you had to have some skills there. That evolution has changed, because there's less and less of that small town experience. And I moved to San Diego, which is very systematized now. And that has been the evolution of care. But I think some of the things that you also see in this evolution will be, what are we going to do with the massive increase in our advanced elderly population, and how do we be compassionate to them and achieving goals that are consistent with their goals of care? And that's very, and I think that's the crux of what we're trying to do in palliative medicine and geriatric medicine. And I think the evolution of that is going to take a little bit of time. But we're marching forward and doing our best to get to where we need to be.
Thank you so much for sharing your personal experience, Dr. Hofer. I did not know, some of the things that you shared. I have known you for a few years, but thanks for being courageous and sharing, your experiences that you went through. You come very close to life and death situations when it comes to taking care of patients, in terms of what we do. Have you had experiences where, some people would call them aha moments, where it's completely changed your thought process in terms of how you view life? Because, one of the privileges I feel we have in what we do is to help patients through perhaps their most testing times, right? And so what inspiration, or what pearls have you derived from those experiences?
Well, there's so many experiences. It's hard to pick out one. I have to say that I was very fortunate, because my father was a pilot for United Airlines, and I've actually had an opportunity to travel all over the world and experience many cultures and many ideas and many experiences. And um, I think the average American would be humiliated by how little they know about American politics because we affect every other country in the world and we don't even know half the things that many of my friends and acquaintances and people I met across the world knew. And they have different perspectives about life and what's important in value systems than we have here. And you know what? It really wakes you up to being tolerant because they live meaningful and fantastic lives. It doesn't mean you have to get into um, accepting of all those other things. You have to be true to yourself. So I always say, don't let other people tell you who you are, but try to be sincere and be tolerant and listen to those other folks because their lives are just as important and valuable and meaningful as yours. Having said that, in the medical community, um, I take care of a person who is the head of a monastery, a Buddhist monk, and he basically just wants to know what's going on, but he refuses any Western medicine, just refuses that. And I'm fine with it because the ownership, my job as a physician, and I learned this lesson many times, is not to force people to do what I think they should do, but to give them the opportunity to know what we have available for them so that they can make the decision about what they feel is best. And the only problem I have is people who come in to see me, but they're so angry they don't want to. I'm not even sure why they're there. And so they're coming in for a visit, and you're trying to offer recommendations, but they're just beating everything down, which is different than the abbot. And you ask, well, why did you come in? I asked them, well, why are you coming in to see me if you're not going to make any of or take any of these recommendations? And usually the answer to that is, in my experience, is you have to find out what's behind their anger or lack of trust or frustration. And then you might be able to get somewhere. Yeah, and there's many reasons. Sometimes it's just they've had bad experiences or they don't trust healthcare or but they're there. So on some level, they're holding out a hand or maybe a part of their pinky, and you better accept what they're going to give you and then work with that and try to move forward from there and make your peace with that. But my job is as a physician is not to force people to be something they don't want to be, but to give them the opportunity to improve their health with what I think would be the best recommendations for them. And I don't pretend to understand all the culturalisms or personal issues or other stuff that people have when they come in to see me.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So you've had so much experience, your wealth of knowledge. Uh, I always ask this: what do you think life is all about?
That's a great metaphorical question, isn't it? What is it all about? Well, I can say on a personal level is to make your life as meaningful and purposeful as it can for as long as you can. That's my meaning to me is, to bring as much joy to my patients and to my wife and be sincere to myself, to who I am, and be at peace with who I am. A lot of people I say I have thick skin because of that, because I don't get swayed. I just, I'm just at peace with life. I told my wife when we got married, I said, this is a non-gossip house. So we don't talk about other people. We just be at peace with who we are. And, you know, uh, we'll leave all that to everybody else. Our job is just to be comfortable with who we are and live our own lives and be at peace. And everybody loves my wife. So I try to be like her. Um, but that's my purpose. That's who I am. That's my life.
That's very insightful, and thanks for sharing that. It is inspiring. I would once again, before we wind up, like to take this opportunity to thank you for sharing, your perspective and insights with us. And I'm just stunned and blown away, to be quite honest. So thank you very much, and I hope you will, consider uh, sharing some of your valuable insights in the future as well. And so we look forward to having you again.
Well, thank you, Parag. It was very nice to speak to you. And as always, I'm sure I'll see you in person one of these days. And so thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Parag.